What is the difference between the Yaesu FTDX-10 that I have been loving on my POTA activations for the last year and this brand new FT-710 AESS radio that just dropped that looks a lot like the FTDX-10 with some smaller form factor features and a couple of things taken out? What's the big difference? Well, today I welcome Doug N4H&H onto the channel, who works in the radio industry and is much smarter about receivers than I am. So check this out. Let me know what you think in the comments below and enjoy the video. All right, Doug. Well, thank you for coming back onto the channel again. For those of you who don't know, Doug is N4H&H. Hide nor hair. That's how I remember your call sign. You told me that last time.
Yeah, not for hide nor hair. One of my Elmers gave me that moniker.
Oh, that's good. Okay. So give us a very brief history of your background, Doug, because that's pertinent to receiver, the receiver talk we're going to talk about today about the FT-710. So tell us a little bit about your channel, and then we'll just hop into it.
Okay, well, a quick overview of my background. I've been involved with radio professionally since 14. My first job was at a CB radio shop, as many have come from, a lot of us have come from that era.
Yes.
And in the 70s. I had the privilege of working for a gentleman who took me under his wing, just a wonderful guy. So that led to later on, I got to work for Motorola. So I fast forwarded a lot, and went through all the exams that you have to go through to be able to work on transmitters. And I was primarily I was a pager technician. Then I became I had to do all the others. I had to climb the towers and do the installs too for a while. And then once I passed that general radio telephone operator license, I was then brought into the portable room again, which is where pagers were worked on as well. But this time I could work on HTs. So my main thrust was HTs. And so I've been around radio professionally since age 14, and I'm not bragging or anything, but I am glad that I never had to flip burgers. I was always able to have a job doing something in electronics.
Sure. Makes sense. Good.
So,
okay.
And my channel began accidentally because I was on the search for my next base station. Now, to clarify that, I've only bought 3, and I've been a ham since 1982. So I went 20 years between base stations. Now, I had an FT-920, and I had modded it with InRad filters, and it was really serving me quite well. Had a DSP 59 Plus from Time Wave on top of it, enhancing it some. And so I'd go down to HRO. Fortunately, I live only 30 minutes from an HRO. And, they got that desk where you can go in there and play. And I just kept going there, and I'd say, yeah, I don't see anything that really rolls me over that makes me want to give up my 920. But in 2019, I said, you know what? I'm at a point now where I want to go ahead and buy my retirement radio. And I started looking on YouTube, and I had narrowed it down to a particular radio. I guess I shouldn't mention it in here, but the one I walked out with is not the one that I walked in to buy. Right. And I actually wound up in it taking 8 months and sitting there for about 2 or 3 hours at a time. The guys in there are just kind of chuckling, trying these radios on the air. I lab tests are great, but to me, the rubber meets the road when I get in there and try to pull an S3 signal out of an S5 noise floor.
Right.
So I'll say this, what I walked out with 8 months later was an FTDX-1000 MP. And yes, I had even tried out the 101 MP. Well, the D model that they had on display, but they had the MP in stock. And so that's the third base station I ever bought. And then along came the FTDX-10. And that one was, I didn't mean to get it. It was dropped off by someone, friend of mine, who said, set this thing up for me. And I guess he forgot about it.
Oh, he never came back for it?
No, he said, shoot a bunch of videos. When you're done, I'll take it and put it in my cabin. And he doesn't like any credit for this, so I won't mention his name. But anyway, yeah, I wound up acquiring that one, and it's a great second radio, because if in emergency conditions I can't run the 5000, I don't have a generator. So that's a great radio for me to just reach down and switch it over to a Bio-NO backup battery, and I've got HF, and that bad boy, that little dude can receive, man. I mean, it can pull them right out, and I've shot videos putting it up against the 5000.
Yeah.
So it's a great transceiver. I've had really high hopes for this 710 when I saw it introduced, when it was a rumor. I was thinking it was going to wind up being like a little portable type radio, sort of like a 705. You'd think Yaesu's do that, right? It's about time they produce a radio like that. So anyway, but let's talk about the 710. That's what we're doing, right?
Yep, absolutely. Okay. Well, you kind of hinted that this might not be a cheerleader type talk, so we're gonna be real honest with you. This radio is going to work great for a lot of people, but it's good to compare it to what else is out there too. It's good to have an actual factual comparison about what it does and what it doesn't do, because it's not supposed to be at the same level as the 10 or especially the 101 or even the 5000. So
exactly. I saw the results of an independent lab test because I even had viewers telling me emphatically, Rob Sherwood's not going to test this. He's retired. And and I kept thinking, nah, he's gonna test it.
Yeah.
But
of course.
but before that, if you looked at the numbers from that lab, it looked like it would come in around 12th plus or minus in his list, interpolating their test versus his.
Sure.
So I was quite shocked when it came in, right below the FTDX-10, and really they're equal on that 2 kilohertz dynamic range test, which is the one he ranks by.
Right.
So the reason it's below the FTDX-10 is a couple of the other areas. It doesn't do as well with 100 kilohertz spacing dynamic range. It's a 129 decibel for the techies out there. FTDX-10 is a 141, and FTDX-101D is a 147. So that's still not bad. By the way, I think a lot of people know by now, anything on Rob's list that rates over there in that right column, if it gets up above 90, it's good. If it gets above 100, I tell people start picking the radio based upon how it looks, brand loyalty,
Yeah.
Because you're splitting hairs there, because his test is run with one set of criteria. It doesn't take into account all the additional things that a radio can do with DSP and other filters and things. So, because for example, my 5000 has now slipped down to 15th on that list. But I put it up against the 10 all the time, and sometimes one wins, sometimes the other wins, when you kick in all of their other features. The 5000 has some things a 10 and a 101 do not have. It has a super narrow APF function that comes in really handy on CW. So you got to look at more than just that one criteria, and I think that people have to just... Ergonomics is huge. I mean,
yes,
the FTDX-10 caught some heat over ergonomics, so I'll springboard into that, because my most recent video, I'm doing a series on this. Video number 9 is when I unboxed one, and I just released video number 10 Tuesday, and it's actually a size comparison, but I can't help it. I just pointed out a couple of things, like the FTDX-10 took a lot of criticism over the crowding of the buttons around the VFO,
right?
And I'll agree that there are 2 of those buttons that I might hit often that can be annoying, and one is band and the other is Zen, 0N for CW. I don't use it as much because I can do it by ear, but the band button is tight between the function knob and the VFO, the main VFO, and then you've got the outer dial, which that's another thing I miss because
I've missed that on this model too, and I can't tell you how many times I've used the lock button for that VFO when you're trying to punch buttons around that big knob on the FTDX-10. You're out in POTA, and you look down, and you're like, how did I get on that frequency? I'm like, what the hell? What happened?
Yeah,
so that lock button on the 10 is well used on my radio.
I think I said it in one of my recent videos. The lock button is your friend,
right?
And again, I'm not going to get too bent out of shape that, because look how much radio they essentially crammed half of an FTDX 101D into a small box.
Correct.
And you just didn't get extra antenna connections, and you didn't get the VC Tune pre-selector, which is a phenomenal feature. I would say the ergonomics on the FT-710, you know, there are a lot of people are looking, oh, wow, they spread the knobs out. I'm going to, when we get to a picture of one, I'll point something out that I feel about the ergonomics is a miss. I hate to start off with a negative because there is a lot of good, folks. I'll tell you some of the good as well.
Yeah.
For one thing, it's the highest rated pure SDR in the world now, going by that test that Mr. Sherwood runs.
Okay.
It even edges out the K3S, which is a hybrid.
Yes.
So, you know, now it, of course, is bested by its big brother, the FTDX-10, and the FTDX-101D is still the king of the hill. Mm-hmm. And I've pointed this out on my channel just to be fair, because I keep seeing people say it's fourth, and FTDX-10 is third. Technically, if you read footnote Y on Rob Sherwood's ranking list, the 6700 that's listed as second place is disqualified because that one was sent to him for that test. When he went out and tested production models, various models, even the ARRL tested some, 99 decibels. Lower than the FTDX 5000, which is a 2009 design. Mm-hmm. So that I don't know why Rob leaves that there because it does lead to some confusion. And it really doesn't matter, I guess, when you take into account that anything in the top 10 is great. But
True.
That makes it not in the top 10. Mm-hmm. And you know, and for those who are saying, well, I want to, you know, bragging rights, you know, I've got the greatest receiver in the world or the second greatest receiver in the world, it skews it a little bit. But that said, the 710 is now the highest ranking pure SDR there is. And I kind of expected Yaesu would be capable of doing that. I mean, think of it this way. They've been back with their arms crossed checking out what everybody else is doing, and they had the opportunity to perfect it. Now,
true.
I would expect ICOM is not going to be too far behind with an update, you know. Something.
You know, people like to compare, and when the 10 came out, this happened a lot. And when the 710 came out, this happened a lot too. We always thought that the 710 was an odd model number to have, but that's I don't want to get off in that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But you know, we talked about the fact that everything gets compared to the 7300.
Yeah, it does.
Everything gets compared to the well, it's just going to be a 7300 killer.
I have a friend who calls it my friend calls it the people's radio because, well, look how many have been sold.
Right, exactly, yeah. Because the 7300 when it came out was very popular. It still is very popular.
Oh yeah.
It became a lot more popular a few years after. I was there at Dayton the year it came out. They sold for $14.99. And all of and ICOM went to all of the retailers because one of the retailers told me this. I'm not going to say who. They said, please don't discount this. We want to make it fair for everybody. And the retailers were like, okay, cool. We're not going to discount it, which means they make more money because they're not giving discounts.
Right.
So, but nobody went home. No retailers went home with the 7300 that weekend. So all of them were sold. Well, that was back when they were selling for $14.99 when they debuted at Dayton. You know, fast forward 3 or 4 years later, and on Black Friday before the pandemic, it was Black Friday 2019. That radio was like $890.
Yeah, I've seen them under a grand. I tell my viewers this: if you're just going to come home and relax in your easy chair in your shack, and you're going to rag chew with the fellas on 40 or 80, 40 or 75, man, that 7300 is all the radio you will ever need. It's intuitive. It's a great radio for, I know this is not a 7300 video, but it's a great radio for somebody who's new because it kind of leads you along. It even comes out of the box with good audio with a Yaesu. I had one of my viewers the other day, and I think I agree with him. I do agree. He said a Yaesu's a thinking man's radio. You got to dig into the manual more. You got to, because it's going to come, it's got 2 parametric EQs in it, 3 bands each. Okay, it's not just a simple bass and treble. You can really tailor that audio. Mm-hmm. But it comes out of the box with none of those configured, and in fact, the mic EQ is not even enabled. So you're on your own with a Yaesu. You got to really dig into the manual, which that sort of led to my channel because I could not find videos that were showing me the things I wanted to see. I would see videos, people just put 2 radios next to each other and turn knobs, and I'm sitting here going, yeah, change that filter,
right?
Engage that DNR, you know. And so I just said, okay, you know what? Once I do choose a radio, I'm going to start some videos about it.
Sure.
And of course that was the 5000, and then it springboarded into 991A, 891. But yeah, you know, Not that I do not work for Yaesu. I shoot straight. I tell the good, the bad, and the ugly. The FTDX-10, I did some nitpick videos. It's not a perfect radio. There are some things that I would definitely improve if Yaesu would listen. I told them May of 2021. None of it's been implemented. But it's still really, really close. And that's what pains me, is when somebody can make something that good and get that close to perfection and miss out on something. For an example, I can use my mouse to configure the menus, but I got to press a button to get into the menus. I can't right click, I can use a mouse to change modes, but I can't use a mouse to change band. Therefore, I'm forced to press my finger between the VFO and the function knob. So a little nip and a tuck here, things that could be done in firmware. And it could be the perfect radio. But I'll tell you this, I mean, if there is no FTDX-10, that FT-710 then becomes a really great radio. But when you put it up against its big brother, there are some failings, and I'm going to be unfolding that in the series on my channel. Okay. But now we were going to talk about the size, because I don't know about you, but I've had that question asked.
Yes.
So many times, and sometimes I chuckle and go, well, you can do what I did. You can go to the manuals and look it up. But I do have, if you want me to switch over, I've got the two, one sitting on top of the other. I've got another camera here. See if I can do this. So we're 9.4 wide with the 710, 10.5 wide with the FTDX-10. We're 3.1 inch tall with the 710. We're 3.6 with the FTDX-10. And then we're 9.7 inches deep with the FT-710, and we're 10.4 deep with the FTDX-10. So, it is definitely a noticeable difference in size. And one would probably reason that a FT-710 would be a great portable radio. Now, in my opinion, you'd want to unhook that SP40 speaker and use headphones. And I guess if you want to, we can springboard right into what is AESS. Since we're talking about the SP40.
Yeah. So, one of the so I had John, a little preface, because I don't know if you saw this on my video, but I had John on a live stream when I first got this one that's sitting next to me. And he explained what AESS was. I'd like to hear your take on it. But the most common question in the comments, and in the comments after, people put in the comments after the live comments and the post comments, is that they were less interested in the radio having the AESS, since it wouldn't work over headphones. So that seemed to be a pretty commonly commented.
Well, it can't work over headphones. I work in the audio industry. Now I've been doing that for quite a while. As another, I have too many hats I wear. I mean, literally, I was a bass player at a recording session night before last. I do all kind of stuff.
Nice.
So, what you've got there in terms, it's been around in the music industry for many, many years. Large public address systems have this. Everybody talks about subwoofers.
Yeah.
Well, the subwoofer, usually sitting on the floor, if somebody knows what they're doing when they install it, it needs to couple to the floor. The subwoofer, there's something called a crossover. You don't want to send the high frequencies to your subwoofer. Some of the subwoofers will what we call crossover at 120 hertz. Some are designed to cross over at 80 hertz. So you're literally filtering out all the high frequencies, sending them to the big speakers that are hanging somewhere. And you're putting the lower frequencies into that subwoofer. So what Yaesu's done here is a similar concept. And so a couple of the controls on this now the menu system on this thing is so much like the FTDX-10, and that's good, because somebody who's already got an FTDX-10, see, I have one of my viewers has made a great point. He bought two FTDX-10s, one for home, one for POTA. And he said, because I don't have to relearn a radio. When I go out in the field, I know my way around it. And I agree. And the 710 is enough like the FTDX-10 that you'll be able to do that, because they share so many. I'll tell you this. Here's a flaw. They share a flaw. Many people notice that the RF gain knob on the FTDX-10, when you rotate it, it sounds like a dirty potentiometer. But those are encoders, so it can't be. The FT-710 has inherited that as well. If you rotate your RF gain knob, you'll hear a scratchy sound. So you can tell they're using very, very much the same firmware, just tweaked, nipped, and tucked. But so anyway, that is a difference. But other than that, the screen is practically identical to the FTDX-10. And by the way, I guess it goes without saying, if we look at the radio now, it's very obvious Yaesu didn't listen to all of the belly aching. That's how we say it here in Georgia.
Yeah.
No backlit buttons. You know,
right.
I think that's a missed opportunity on the FTDX-10, and I think it's they didn't have an excuse on the 710, but but they did not give that to you. Notice that glow there around the VFO. That is kind of interesting. It's blue if you're on VFO A. It's green if you're on VFO B. It's white if you're in.
I haven't noticed that it changed colors.
Well, it will if you toggle over to VFO B. Let me do that.
Yeah, I'm doing that on mine right now, and yes, you're right, obviously, but
yeah, it'll go to green for VFOB. It'll go to white if you're using memory mode, which I use Memory Tune all the time with my rig. Man, Memory Tune is a godsend with an FT-891. I run one mobile, and I hardly ever have to look at it.
Yeah.
And then it goes red if you are like working split or using the clarifier. So
okay.
It's got 4 different color schemes, and in the menu you can actually change the color scheme. But now back to the DNF thing, I should mention. So there's some distortion that's introduced in there with strong signals on the FTDX-10. I reported it to Yaesu way over a year ago. The FT-710, this is now remember it's using an NXP Semiconductors DSP chip. Now why Yaesu broke with the TI thing? Because it works so well in the FTDX-10. Except DNF. This one does not have as much distortion. In fact, you have to nitpick it to hear it. But there is some in there. But if you didn't turn it off to compare it, you might not notice it. It's very, very minor. And let's face it. Things like DNF, noise blanker, they're all ways of compromise. You really want to deal with the issue. You want to cut the coax of the guy that's tuning. Just kidding. You want to call the power company to get rid of the power line noise. So those are stopgap measures. And that's why if I'm choosing a radio, that's not going to be the thing that makes me go, nah, I won't buy that radio. So in all fairness. But other than that, those screens are about the same. Now, this AESS system, that stands for Acoustic Enhancement Speaker System. And what they've done, back to my music industry roots here, a crossover is going to decide which frequencies go where into what speaker. So I should point this out. Low frequencies are omnidirectional. So you can hear low frequency, like a subwoofer can be anywhere in the room. You don't even know where. But higher frequencies are directional. And so that's why in a big PA system, the loudspeakers, they're going to point they want to make sure that the higher frequency speakers, which usually look like a horn, tweeters, are pointed in the direction of the audience. So what Yaesu has done is they're putting the high frequencies out on the SP40 that's out on the side of the radio. They're sending lower frequencies to the internal speaker, and it's selectable. The other option now, the setting I have it on right now is to adjust the balance. How much of the internal speaker do you want to hear versus the external speaker? And I've actually found that 90% works for me. 75, 85 is good too, but 90% beefs it up a little bit, gives you a little bit more, because this is a small radio.
Yeah.
So I've got a video coming up for the people who are going, well, yeah, but how does it sound compared to the SP30? Well, stay tuned. It's going to be in my next week's video. I'm releasing videos every Tuesday about this rig.
Okay. I'm not sure when this one will release yet, so check the playlist. Do you have all those in a playlist, Doug?
Yes, everything's in a playlist. There's an FT-710.
Okay.
And I admit, you go on YouTube as you and I will see it a different view because with studio or whatever, but you go in there as a viewer and the playlists get a little bit lost in the shuffle over there on that sidebar to me.
Yeah.
But if you see one, you got to click more. And I got over 50 playlists.
Yeah, same here.
Broken down into each subject. Yeah. And I even had a guy a while back, you think you could put these in different folders and based on the... they're called playlists.
They're called playlists.
So the other option there for AESS is to pick what you might call the cutoff frequency or the crossover frequency. Yaesu gave us 2 choices, 700 hertz and 1000 hertz. So what you're saying there is which range of frequencies do I want to come out of the internal speaker, because that's more omnidirectional. And so you can say 700 hertz and down, which is the default, or you can do 1000 hertz and down, which actually I tinkered with that a little bit last night. I've been doing some CW with the rig, and last night I worked Croatia. I got a 5.8 with 100 watts into my ZS6 BKW. But to me, I was just tweaking around with that, and I felt like he sounded better with it at 90%. Now I listened to a few other people and said, yeah, that's a little more full, for a little bitty speaker system. That does help.
Yes.
But is it gimmicky? Yeah, probably a little bit, but it does work. And so I found that sending 1000 hertz and down into the internal speaker, rather than 700 hertz and down from my ear. See, this is the thing that's great about having all these controls for receive audio. For example, the FT-710 introduced a 3-band EQ for receive. You don't see that on a lot of radios. Literally a bass, mids, and treble for receive. It's one of the very first settings I do. I did it in the unboxing video for this rig. And I did it for the 10. So I get viewers who go, man, I have a hard time hearing certain frequency ranges. Man, you can tailor that all over the place. And I'll tell you what I did last night, too, is I unplugged the SP40 just to see what will it sound like with the internal speaker with it set on 1000 hertz. Now, as you might guess, you don't get as much of the shrill highs, but and also you don't get all that noise that comes in at those higher frequencies. So it's a trade-off there. But it will work with just the internal speaker. I don't know about the impedance values. I haven't looked at a schematic yet, whether Yaesu might say, well, it's not good to run it on an internal speaker, but usually you get lower impedance when you hook two speakers in parallel. So I'm trusting that that's okay. But I recommend people that are going to operate portable, wear headphones, plug it into the front. You'll get full range and be done with it. Now, one other little thing about the AESS, I found that putting the speaker on the right-hand side, because the internal speaker is on the left-hand side, by the way. Putting the external speaker on the right-hand side, because they allow you to do it either way. You just kind of slide it over these two screws and lock it in place.
Right.
You get a little bit more separate. Yeah, your picture's better there. Go. Yeah. So see that right up there on the top, you can see the internal speaker.
Yeah, right here.
Yep. So by having the SP40 over there on the right, you're going to get more separation, and you're going to hear. I forget if it was a Yaesu marketing paperwork. Somebody described it as more of a 3D sound. If anything, I would say surround sound. But
it's surround sound, yeah.
Yeah, you're going to hear that difference more so with the speaker on the right. If you put the speaker over on the left, when you plug up, you're going to your SD card slots over on the left. But also, you're going to have those speakers so close together, you won't be able to hear as much of that separation. Right. So that's the AESS system. Is it a little bit of a trickery? Yeah, probably so. And the people who say, well, I would have bought the radio if they hadn't forced an external speaker on me. I did a poll among my Patreon team, and overwhelmingly people use headphones and external speakers. It was like 6% use the internal speaker of a radio. So you're going to have an external speaker anyway, or you're going to use headphones. And so I guess in a sense, it's okay that it comes with a speaker, but if you're going to take it portable, you probably won't use it. And I should say this too, you were talking about the pricing when the 7300 came out.
Yeah.
This is, a lot of people don't realize this, but they don't make much profit on the radios.
No.
It's minimal. I don't know if you've been told that too, but
yes, I have.
That's why a speaker inside of a metal box is $170. They make their money off the accessories. That they hope you're going to buy that desk mic and that external speaker. The radios, they're just bare bones on the pricing there, so I don't get too concerned. I've had people gripe about the price of this, and then I go back and look at my 1959 CQ magazine. On the back flap, there's a Drake for $599, and there's a Collins for $1,200. So I think we're doing pretty well these days, price wise. You get a lot.
That's a good point.
For your money, with the modern transceivers. So I talked about the DNF, no backlit buttons. RF gain still has the scratchy sound. I've got a little note card here. If you, and no CW decoder, but let's do this. Let's talk about the ergonomics a bit, because that was a huge deal with people like, oh yeah, look, finally they spread the knobs out. Well, I want to draw your attention to something. The knobs that you see there, none of them have a ring. And in fact, you don't have that. Yeah. And you don't have that outer dial for the VFO.
Yeah, there's no outer dial ring here either.
So for me, I use the CS button, the custom switch button, and I permanently assign the outer dial to be the level for the scope sensitivity on mine, and I'm missing that because I'm now having to use the function knob for that. Well, for the function knob, I usually, if I'm in sideband, I use it for power. If I'm in CW, I use it for CW speed because, I'm working different people at different speeds, and I want to quickly reach up there and change CW speed. So things are more spread out, but I find myself having to go to menus more often. So top right there, that's the RF gain
right here,
and the bottom right is AF gain, which is audio frequency gain. Volume. Right. So I think that was a missed opportunity there because that's a lot of real estate for just those two knobs with only those two functions. Because on an FTDX-10, those are down to the lower left of the VFO, which people hated on, and I agree, we do like a volume knob on their lower right. Just people tend to be that way unless they're left-handed. They're left-handed.
True.
But you had the RF gain and the audio frequency gain, the volume, all on one shaft there.
Right.
So it took up very little space. Now you got all that real estate over there on the right-hand side that is just for two. It's really all that over there to the right of the VFO is just to replace one spot that was on the FTDX-10. Well, here's my issue with that. On the FTDX-10, the up in the top right was bandwidth and shift. Grab a knob and automatically you're controlling it. No menu selection, nothing. It's right there at your fingertips. The bottom right was your contour, your APF, or whichever one you selected to use. Typically on CW it's APF and sideband it's contour. And those are unique. Some radios don't from other brands don't always have that. Some do. But and then also your manual notch knob. You need a manual notch. That's why it doesn't bother me about the DNF having distortion. I quickly just rotate a knob and it automatically engages the manual notch. You don't have to turn it on with a button. There is one, but you don't have to. And then I quickly just zero, and I shot a video recently showing how to use the bandpass scope, that little display up in the top right, to see the spike of a header down and then quickly move that deep V for the manual notch over there. I always go into the menu system and set the manual notch to its most narrow setting, and APF as well. So again, at your fingertips. And so now how do we get to all of that? We have to press that button down there to the lower left, which is if you just start rotating and it changes frequency in 5 kilohertz increments.
Right.
If you now if you're in memory mode, it cycles through the memory frequency, the what you have stored in memory, which Yaesu,
Correct.
A lot of people don't know this, but Yaesu puts 60 meters in there for you in the memories. They're in memory bank 5. Memory 01 is yours, but they actually do have a sample frequency in there. It's always 7 megahertz. But then you can load it all up. I like to go in order of 160. From 160 meters, I'll put my favorite CWs, sideband, AM, all the way up with every band. So that knob will also cycle through memories if you're in memory mode. And then if you press it, it brings up DSP. So now you have to rotate it to what do you want to adjust in DSP. And then once you select what you want to adjust, you got to press it again. Right. And then once you press it, you'll see it blink, and then you can make a change. And if you make a change, it'll go from gray to that amberish, yellowish. So you got a lot of steps there to get to not things that I used to just reach for a knob for. So, okay. Right. Yeah, ergonomically, it's more spread out. Yep, and you're going to be hitting a menu more often because of that. So, it's always the good with the bad, isn't it? I mean, you gotta take some improvements, and then you got some things that are to me not as well thought out. Because what I would have liked to have seen is ganged knobs again. Bottom right be AF and RF gain, and the top right be width and shift, just like it was on an FTDX-10. Talk about leaving your shack and going out on a POTA site with the FT-710. That makes it even more so. You're going to naturally want to reach up there to the top right to adjust width and shift, and it's in the same place if they had done that with this rig. So I put it this way. I see pluses and minuses with the ergonomics. Some people are going to say, well, I like it more spread out like it is. Here's another little funny thing. The band button, see where it is up there to the top right of the VFO?
Yeah, I'm used to it being over here.
Exactly. Now, granted, it was crowded. I got to be honest with you. I got used to the FTDX-10. I can operate the thing, no problem. But
right
now to cycle through the band stacks, you got to tap band and then tap function, or tap the band button there. But you can also press function in, and it'll cycle through the band stacks. You know, each band has 3. Think of them as quick access. You know, like you can have a favorite CW frequency in there, sideband frequency, and AM. And now you got to spread out to do that. Now, I have the early firmware from my FTDX-10, which I don't know why they changed it. I requested them to put it back. Numerous viewers of mine have requested. Mine, you just double tap band and you cycle through the band stack. Tap, tap, next band stack. Tap, tap. That was version 0104 of the FTDX-10. After that, it's the same thing, but the band button was, of course, closer to the function knob with the FTDX-10. So pluses and minuses ergonomically. But now, can the radio hear? Yeah, it hears very well. It does. I believe Rob's numbers are being proven to me as I chase weak signals. I've already used it on CW. And, you know, last night worked the Croatian station. I'll say this, though, and this will be in one of my upcoming videos, so I'll give a teaser. It's got a strange, annoying popping sound coming from that speaker every time when you're sending CW. It's not the relay. You know, people go, I hate a radio with relays. Well, that's a whole another topic, you know, pin diodes versus relay. There are pluses and minuses to each. But you can put it on semi break-in, so you've got I use a 500 millisecond delay, so the relay is only going to click once, and I'll send, and then it'll let go when I'm done, a half a second after I'm done. It's not that relay. It's an audio sound coming from the SP40, and it's like a pop, 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 after every dit and da.
Really?
And it was so annoying to me that it screwed me up a couple of times sending CW because I wasn't, you know, you need that feedback of yourself. To make sure you don't want to sound like you don't have a good fist, as they say. So that's a little something. Now, all of my nitpicks, I'm hoping, can be addressed in a firmware update. It is a different DSP chip, so is that DSP chip even capable if they do a firmware update? That remains to be seen. My next video that's coming out Tuesday, I'm going to get into digital noise reduction. I won't do it here because I want that to be a surprise. And there is a surprise related to the digital noise reduction. See, I know people hate digital noise reduction, but for me, I can't operate without it now. I'm spoiled. I mean, I like sideband to sound like I'm talking on a repeater. But the key to that is a lot of people miss out on this. They dump everything from the front end of the receiver into the DSP and say, all right, now clean it up. No. I teach it all the time on my channel. Deal with the noise in the front end. Work that S meter to the left, not to the right. IPO, attenuation, RF gain, minimize how much noise you're sending to the DSP, and it will do a fabulous job for you. But another weird, there's a quirk in Yaesu radios, and those who don't know this yet, you got big viewership, so maybe we can get the word out. On FT-891 and 991A, they use the same chip, by the way, as the 10 and the 101. But the algorithms are different, and I don't know if it's a memory limit, why Yaesu hasn't gone back and upgraded those. Forget algorithms 1 through 8 on the digital noise reduction. Start at 9, because 1 through 8 is going to sound like you're listening underwater. 9 doesn't do that. 9, you may hear a little bit of an echo effect, but what you're hearing there is your AGC tail. In other words, it's cleaned up so much noise, you can now hear the AGC tapering off. Whereas before it was there, but you couldn't hear it because of the noise. So on 891, 991A, you want to run it at algorithm 9 or higher, but that's going to dull out the highs. Only run at 9 if you don't go higher than 9 unless you need to. So the 10 comes out, and the DSP on it, the DNR, rivaled my 5000, because my 5000 never makes that underwater sound. Doesn't matter if I'm on algorithm 1 or 15. And when the 10 came out, it just shocked me. Same chip. The 101 even had the watery sound, and that's why one of the reasons I chose the 5000. Many other reasons too. Knobs. I said, wow, they've got it. They're rivaling the 5000 with this one. And now a later update made the 101 equal the 10. So I'm told.
Okay.
I've never had my hands on a 101 since the ones that I tested to make my buying decision. So I haven't tried one since that update. But yeah, I mean, the as I'll point out in the video that's coming up next Tuesday, you know, the digital noise reduction in the 710 is definitely different because you got a different chip, and the differences are pretty noticeable. Yeah. So did we cover? I think we covered about everything, didn't we?
I think that's about yeah. That was actually maybe a little bit more than we talked about, but which is good. I mean, it's all really good information. So yeah, great. Okay, well, hey.
So to be clear, I'm not hating on the 710. I think it's a great radio.
It's good to be honest with, and you know, it's not supposed to be an FTDX-10 competitor. Why would Yaesu make a radio that competes with an existing radio that they only released like 2 years ago?
Right.
So it's not supposed to be an FTDX-10 competitor. It's supposed to be an FTDX-10 in a smaller box with less features with a lower price tag. And someone said, well, they're only $100 within $100, $150 of one another. Yes, but the 710 comes with the speaker.
Yeah.
And you can say, well, I don't use the speaker. Well, it comes with it. So you can, I don't know if maybe you can sell it or if you can just use it when you're home in the shack. If you're using it for a portable radio, I'm totally with you on that. I wouldn't think I'd want to take it portable much.
I mean, if you set up on a picnic table, maybe. Yeah,
and that's typically what I do with POTA. And I find I've got a Heil Pro 7 for that's got a Yaesu plug. I bought that to use with my Flex Radio Maestro, which is the same plug. So I can use it on my Yaesu or my Flex radios. I don't use that when I go to POTA because usually I'm making a video, and if I put headphones on, the video can't hear the audio coming from the radio.
Yep.
So I'm like, now not everybody is doing that. Not everybody's making YouTube videos like I am. But yeah, I mean, when I was on field day, yeah, I'm plugging in my Pro 7 headset. Absolutely. It's just it's night and day, but between the signals you can hear, whether they're loud signals or whether they're in the noise signals, you can definitely hear them better without all the people talking around you. And we do field day in a big group, so. But that speaker is going to be, at least it's there if you want it as an option in this package. So, but if you don't want it and you want a little bit more radio, choose the FTDX-10 package.
So field day, you bring that up. That's a great point to be able to make a point. And Rob Sherwood's test, the 100 kilohertz number that he's got in there, the 129 decibel. So on a field day situation, that's the number that would, because you're going to have multiple operators around, multiple antennas. That number would come into play there because you're going to have people on other bands. You're going to have people up and down a band. Maybe you're working CW, 40 meters. Somebody else is up working sideband. That's where that number will come into play. And in that scenario, the FTDX-10 wins. But they are neck to neck. I mean, they really are. They're neck to neck on the receive side itself. Sensitivity and all those aspects of it, and it is, it is number wise, it is the best SDR, pure SDR made. I have a theory as far as why did Yaesu, because I've had so many people, I don't know if you have, but they ask me, why did they do this? Why did they bring out a radio so similar?
Yeah.
And when they should, and this is what they say, and when they should have brought out something like the 705.
Yes.
And my theory is, and I'll probably be told I'm wrong. I'm sure probably I am, but my theory is. They needed their Me Too radio because, well, you don't have a pure SDR. You came out with a thing called a hybrid. Yeah, well, that hybrid's number one in the world, but you don't have a pure SDR. The same thing is being said to Kenwood. I mean, like Kenwood, when are you going to come out with an SDR? I mean, it's sad about Kenwood. They're hardly doing anything, it looks like. But, my theory is that it was okay, fine. We'll show you that we can make an SDR. And, oh, by the way, ours is now the best SDR ever made, pure SDR, based on that ranking. But that's just a theory.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Hey, I'm sure Yaesu watches your videos because you're all over the world. Yaesu, we need a 705 competitor.
I say they know that, but Yaesu USA knows that. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Yaesu Japan, I don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But
yeah.
You know what? I mean, if you think about it, the 817 and 818 were the predecessor to the 705. Now, those radios are night and day. I mean,
they don't have DSP.
No.
And they don't come with a CW filter.
No. They don't have a lot of, and they're big and heavy and bulky, but they're an all mode HF portable QRP radio with its own battery. Since the pandemic started, Yaesu's released like 5. This is either radio number 5 or number 6 since the pandemic started.
Yeah.
Kenwood is gone. They're not gone. They're coming back. I've got good insider information that Kenwood's coming back. Kenwood had a bunch of LMR contracts they had to focus on.
Well, I hope they do. I hope they do.
Yeah, because of chip shortages and supply chain issues, and that is facing everybody. ICOM has released one or two new radios since the pandemic started. I think the 705 actually released in 2020. It might have been 2019. I can't remember if it released before or after the pandemic.
I think it might have been 2019.
It might have been 2019. It might have been right before everything shut down. When I was at the Huntsville Handfest last August, it was 2 months ago. 2 months ago at the time of this recording. The Gigapart store had the IC 7300 for like $1,400.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and all of the ICOM stuff, the prices were like this.
Yeah.
And if you look at the FTDX-10, which came out after the pandemic, or during the pandemic, I should say.
Yeah.
It was $16.99, and now you can get it for about $13.
It's now it's back up to $14.99.95.
Is it $14?
But at that Hamfest, one of the dealers, I won't say who, had it for $13.29.95, and another one had it for $12.99.95.
Okay,
that is an unbelievable price. I mean, that's the price of the 710, and I mean,
right.
The FTDX-10 is if I got to pick between the two, I'm going to get the 10.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But now. My prediction is I don't think the 10, people have asked, do you think the 10 is going to go back to $1,700? I mean, honestly, I got to tell you, when it came out at $1,700, I said, this is a game changer. Because, I mean, the 3000D was still, at that point, $1,800. I said, well, this is going to kill the 3000D, and that happened 2 or 3 months later.
Yeah.
And that's still the 3000D is a great radio. It is.
I never toyed with one of those.
Yeah, it's still a great radio, and it can use mu-tuning pre-selectors like the 5000 can. So you have that front end pre-selector that's variable like you do on the 101D and MP. Even now, when you think about the price of a Collins radio in '59 at $1,200, we're buying some incredible technology even at $1,700.
Right.
But my prediction is I don't think they'll put it back there. I think it's going to settle out at either where it is right now, $14.99.95, or maybe $15.99.95. That's just my gut feel.
Yeah.
You just look at the history of these radios. They do usually settle somewhere.
Yes.
And I'm sure the 710 will settle somewhere. I don't know that, except maybe on a Black Friday if it'll get below 1,000. But
it's possible.
Yeah, I mean it is possible because let's just face it, whether you like it or not, it is going head to head with the 7300.
It is. Yeah, totally. It totally is. And I think Yaesu's got something cooking for the whole QRP thing.
I do hope so, because I haul an FT-891 up the mountains. I'm mountain goat and a half now on soda, and I've carried a 5-pound 891 up because it spoiled me, man. Even on CW, that thing is the boss because it does have a physical roofing filter, even though it's only a 3K. It doesn't go down to 500, but the DSP is just that good. Yeah. My friend Joel saw me work. He was taking a break. He does CW, and I was up there on a mountain, and he walked over there, and I gave a guy a 599. He's looking at the meter. It was barely wiggling. And I said, well, he sounded like 599 to me.
That's
because we also use a radio called an LNR Precision Mountain Topper, and they don't have an S meter, so we always make it up. We go a little bit of white noise, 5.7. A little more white noise, 5.5. Got a little grind in there, 5.3. 9, 5.39, 5.59. So, these kind of radios with the DSP we have available to us today, you can make a 5.29 sound like a 5.99. And that has spoiled me.
Absolutely.
It really, really has. But yeah, I mean, I do carry the 7-ounce radio a little more often now, the little mountain topper. But you're restricted then to CW only.
Yeah.
But that's okay with me.
I've got my eye on that 4BR or whatever it is. As soon as I've been watching their website for when they're supposed to come back. They're supposed to put some more on their website sometime this month. So,
well, and that's another American-made radio, right?
Yes, it is.
California.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I used to have the LD11, which was their sideband NCW version.
I remember that one, and they quit making it, right?
I wish I wouldn't have sold that thing, man. That was a great radio. I don't remember why I sold it. I think I sold it to buy something else. But
I did a poll among my Patreons. I said, have you ever sold a radio and later regretted it? And the majority said yes.
Yeah.
The majority
Yeah.
did say yes,
Mm-hmm.
because just to be upfront with your viewers,
Mm-hmm.
not everything that's new is necessarily better.
No.
I mean, I've got an old radio over here that was made in 1991, and I was running it mobile. Joel, my friend Joel, heard it, and he had just gotten out of his Jeep or something with a different one of the modern radios. He goes, man, compared to mine, it sounds like you took a blanket off the speaker. I mean, then again, remember, a mobile radio back in 1991 was still big.
Yes.
I mean, it was about the size of an FTDX-10, really.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but some of the old radios, man, they have some. Well, I can tell you this: the noise blanker on that radio, best I've ever. I'll tell you what it is. It's a Yaesu FT-890. 890 AT. It has an antenna tuner.
Yeah.
With a 10-meter ham stick, I can work 10, 12, 15, 17, and 20. But the noise blanker in that thing knocks out my ignition pulses, and I never know it's on. No distortion. So newer is not always better. It may be better for the manufacturer because they can pack a little more into an IC chip and it costs less, but it may not always be better. And we have to be smart shoppers in that respect. And that's one of the things I try to give my viewers is that type of insight. Like, don't buy a $600 microphone and plug it into a Yaesu. You got 3-band parametric EQs built into the rig, more than enough EQ. So, for example, on this radio, the 710 and the DX10, you can set up the microphone EQ for the hand mic and then immediately turn around and plug in an M70 or an MD100. It'll sound just as good, because they're very similar sounding. And those are not even, I mean, the M70s, I think $145, maybe $150. You don't need to buy that $500 and $600 microphone for these radios. Just totally unnecessary. You think about what you could do with that extra money. You could buy an antenna.
Yeah.
I mean, you could buy a good off-center fed dipole.
True. Yeah. That is true.
Well, hey, Jason, it was great getting together with you again, man.
Yeah. You too, man. I appreciate you taking the time out this morning, and I gotta box this up and send it to Peter, the guy who won this radio. So I wanted to get this done before I still had it in my hands.
Congratulations, Peter. And look, out of the gate, I checked the firmware version. It's 0.0. So, so hopefully it's going to get better from here with a little nip and a tuck here and there in the firmware. Yeah,
totally. Doug, thank you for the time today. I appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. And
Thanks so much.
You guys go check Doug's. I'll put a link in the description below to Doug's channel, but also his playlist for this specific radio that he has 8 or 9 videos on, and he's adding to as time goes on. So.
My viewers asked me not to clutter my whole channel with FT-710, so I'm only releasing one video a week on Tuesdays at noon.
There you go.
Eastern. Yeah.
That's good.
Well, thank you,
man.
Jason. Have a great one, man.
Yeah, thanks, you too.
Bye-bye.